Britain has a horrifying problem, and that horrifying problem comes from a specific country, and that country is Afghanistan. And may you cast your minds back to 2021, I believe it was, September of 2021. Robert Jenrick was celebrating, welcoming Afghans to our shores, of course famous for being anti-immigration. The based Robert Jenrick, how could he do this? Of course, he is a conservative politician, so that's how. So Robert Jenrick, keep his name in mind as we're going through these things, because of course he welcomed many of the people to our shores. Of course, many other Afghans have come here either legally, other than the project that Jenrick oversaw, as well as illegally. I think there are a significant portion of the small boat arrivals in the channel. And so there's a vast spectrum of ways that they've arrived here. So it's not just Jenrick, but he played a significant part in bringing some of them here. So in the past 48 hours, and the reason I'm talking about this at all, there was 4 different cases of Afghans committing horrific sexual crimes against minors. And unfortunately, I'm going to go over them, but this is just to highlight the extent of the problem. It's not necessarily to rub people's noses in the horrific crimes, but it is important to know about these sorts of things because it is unpleasant. I don't like even looking at these sorts of things, but we do have to if we want to stop them. And here's one from the Manchester Evening News. Afghan national accused of sexually assaulting, I can't say that for YouTube, 2 girls, 14, in Greater Manchester, and they named them as well. The attacks happened in Bolton, apparently. So, Sultani Bakatash, and there was another one here somewhere. I always like to mention at least one of their names. Not that it really makes a difference. But there's another one as well that makes it even worse, is here. The Afghan national accused of sexually assaulting 2 girls was allowed to stay in the UK with his family. And this is this previous person here. So why this is even a thing at all, even a left-winger's just like, okay, you came here, you sexually assaulted some children, maybe you shouldn't be here. But no, apparently that's not how this country works. And we're just going to keep them for some reason, even though, but if you invited someone into your home and they did something, you wouldn't then say, okay, you can stay here. And of course your country is the extension of your home, and yet here they are, still here. Of course this is a policy failure from the government, that they're here in the first place, as well as not getting rid of them when they do things like this. And then there's also this from Leamington Spa, which is, if you're not familiar, quaint little town in Warwickshire. I stayed there for a couple of weeks actually, and it was very nice and very pleasant. Everyone was very friendly, except these 2 people apparently, who hid in some bushes and dragged a 15-year-old girl away before sexually assaulting her, which is just horrifying. And one of the worst things about the actual case of this is that the lawyer representing the 2 Afghans said that if this video goes out to the public, there will be riots. And therefore, the video that the girl took, this video here, from the CCTV, is not the one that she took on her own personal phone. That is not the same one. And so there are lots of people trying to push to say, well, why don't we see it? What are you hiding from us? Because, of course, one of the things that is important about seeing these sorts of things is not necessarily that, it's a spectacle, but that we need to understand the horrors that face people, particularly parents, right? They're probably going to be willing. I'm not a parent myself, but obviously do intend to be one. But a good parent should be willing to watch these horrors so they're best prepared to deal with the realities of the world. And by shielding people away from it or not showing it to people, all it does is obfuscate the reality. And I think that, of course, there is a strong political incentive to do this as well.
Yes.
Because it makes the case for
people.
Go ahead.
People don't understand Afghan culture. The Pew surveys did a study on attitudes of Muslims towards Sharia law and so on and so forth. At the low end, Tunisia and Jordan came in with 40% supporting Sharia law, including beheadings and stonings and things like that. In Afghanistan and Pakistan, it was in the high 90s. It was either in the low 90s or high 90s, but it was definitely in the 90s. And this was done in 2013 after 12 years of the war on terror and eliminating radicals and so on and so forth, and this was still their attitude. To make it worse, in Afghanistan, it's considered absolutely hilarious if one of your mates knows your mother's first name, her given name, because it automatically implies that she's been promiscuous with you. So this is the mindset that you're dealing with. These are the people that are there, and women are veiled there for their own protection from other men. And their perception is that, yep, if she's not covered properly, she's fair game. And so when Jenrick says we're going to welcome X number of people, well, 90% of those have that attitude. It's absolutely insane to hide that from the public and to not discuss it and to not let people have some kind of understanding of how different that culture is from anywhere else. For the rest of the Middle East, the Afghans and the Pakistanis are considered by conservative Muslims to be absolutely mad.
Like, I know that the Arab world in particular looks down upon those countries as being basically backward.
So the level of racism in the Arab world towards these countries is quite spectacular. And they base it on their own experience having dealt with them as foreign laborers. So to say that, okay, let's just bring in a few tens of thousands and sprinkle them around the country for flavor is a deeply destructive policy. And when you consider that a lot of these people and senior officials were familiar with what was going on during the war on terror.
Yeah, Afghanistan is no mystery to people.
Exactly.
We spent 20 years there, didn't we?
Exactly.
And so if you're a competent politician, you should be well acquainted with Afghanistan, our role in it, and also the nature of the culture that we had to deal with.
Exactly. So that's what makes it so much more insulting for somebody like Jenrick to say, well, I was proud of my role in bringing in the Afghans. Really? Did you ask them these kinds of questions? Did you vet them? And if not, why do you bring them?
Yeah, it's madness.
Also, on the point of the seeing the footage of it happening up close and personal, as horrifying as it is and as horrifying as the actual thought of it is, it has a much more raw emotional reaction than seeing something like this footage from afar, which takes all of the emotion out of it.
Yes.
That's why they don't want you to see it. It's the difference between seeing it as kind of a neutral documentary observer versus being put in the shoes of the woman as it's happening, seeing the facial expressions that they would pull, the enjoyment that they're getting out of it. It paints a much clearer picture in your mind of who these people are. And it's the same as with language censorship as well.
Yes.
The words that you use form the thoughts in your mind, and they dictate the thoughts that you put in your mind. It's the same with the visuals. If you see these people as savage animals in this situation, that is going to paint a much clearer picture of who they are than this ever would. It's one of the reasons that visual propaganda has always been so effective. George Floyd in 2020, nobody would have cared if it was just a CCTV silent footage from afar. It was the fact that it was an up-close, personal, visual footage of it being filmed on people's phones where you could hear him, you could see his facial expressions, you could see the disinterest of Derek Chauvin. That's what drew such a massive emotional response from people. And it's the same reason they try and hide things like what happened at the Bataclan in 2015 as well. They don't want people to see what happened. They don't want people to know what happened because
it's horrifying as well, isn't it?
That is one of the most grotesque things that has ever happened on European soil. But if you understand that and you see that, it's not just logically knowing. Like, you can see this and you go, I logically, rationally understand that this has happened. It hits you in the gut. And that's what they don't want.
Sick, doesn't it? And I'm not surprised one bit that they're trying to suppress and hide this video, because given over the past months we've had so many protests outside these asylum hotels and HMOs and so on and so forth, you know, I don't think they can stand it anymore. They can't stomach any more, you know, hit back just from the British people. So it's like, no, we don't want this kicking off over Christmas. Don't get that video out. And it's
Christmas isn't supposed to be the protest period. That's supposed to
be
summer, early autumn, and they want
can
to
handle.
end
Yep.
Yeah. They're not prepared for it this time of year.
What I suspect the videos will show you is a very comprehensive lack of mercy and compassion on their part that makes them look like absolute animals. What I suspect it will show you is that they genuinely don't care about the pain that they're inflicting. They don't care about the fear that
They
they're
probably
inflicting.
enjoy it.
They'd
That's
be
what
happy.
you would see
They
as well.
probably relish it because it gives them power, and they've probably fantasized about it, and so they're, sort of affirmed in the righteousness of what they're doing. And then you see that side of their humanity and you think, this is diabolical, they have to go. That's why they're saying that it'll start a riot, because that's probably what it will show.
I don't doubt it as well, and I have seen comparable sorts of clips, and I think having done this job a while, I imagine you two might be able to sympathise with me here. You sort of build up a mental model of what these sorts of things are like. Like, I haven't seen this video, but I sort of have an intuitive sense of it, because similar things like this unfortunately have happened, and there are videos of them.
Yeah.
And they're some of the most harrowing things I've ever seen in my life, and you're never really going to forget that. And so when I read about these sorts of things, that's what comes to mind. And unfortunately, once you've done this enough, you can imagine what's happened, and it's things that should haunt you, and that's why they're suppressing it, of course.
Yep.
And there's another one as well. This is the fact that one of the people that did this in Leamington Spa, charted his journey across Europe, posting on TikTok, clad in designer gear and a gold watch before arriving, and then he went on to do this sort of thing. So, obviously, not an asylum seeker. Obviously,
I
not
thought you have
in
to be
need.
absolutely desperate to come in on the illegal boats, not be wearing designer clothing and having a gold watch and showing it off all on TikTok.
I mean, I've seen these people in person, and many of them have better smartphones than I had, and nice watches and designer clothes. And I was just like, if I saw a white person wearing that sort of thing, I'd think, okay, that they might be on like a council estate or something, but they're doing pretty well for themselves to be able to afford that.
Yes.
And so the fact that they're so-called asylum seekers is absurd.
Yes.
Have you seen any of these videos that they post? I remember from the Bell, you can see them, and they post them. You look on their Snapchats, and it's like they're a travel influencer or something. They're listing the countries they've visited, the cities, and they're getting these silly pictures outside landmarks. It's like they're on holiday. It's a load of fun. You travel across Europe, do a tour.
It's a rape and loot holiday.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's the equivalent of barbarians going on a raiding party, raping and pillaging.
Except they've got iPhones.
Except they've got iPhones documenting it.
Yeah. So,
And we're letting them in rather than fighting them.
Exactly.
And we pay them when they leave as well.
So
We do pay the Dane Guild, yeah. But that's not even all. Here's another one. These, of course, all within a 48-hour span. 4 charged after teenager sexually assaulted in Bristol. This includes some people that cannot be named, but Salman Habikale, an Afghan national, Awal Ahmadzai, 18, and then a 16 and a 20-year-old that can't have their details released for legal reasons, for whatever reason. I can understand the 16-year-old because, they're under 18, but the 20-year-old, I don't understand exactly what reason that is.
the fact that you'd sort of show up and find a bunch of like-minded people who are willing to go on a jolly rape with you, I mean, that tells you everything that there is to know about this culture.
Well, of course, like if an English person went up to another Englishman
In Ibiza, for example, and hold on, let's sort of, grab some chick and rape her.
They'll get beaten up immediately
Exactly.
and handed into the police.
Whereas here, it's sort of, that's a bonding exercise. And it shows you how depraved the culture is. I mean, you have to be absolutely insane to think that knowing somebody's mother's name is something to mock. Like, what kind of culture is that? And why would you bring it anywhere near anyone else?
And also, it's a country where we occupied it for 20 years. Do you really think it's a good idea to then bring those people here? Do you think perhaps maybe there's going to be a certain degree of hostility towards us?
Exactly.
Of course there will be. If someone occupied Britain for 20 years, migrants perhaps, it's understandable that there's hostility towards them.
Yep.
Right? It makes perfect sense.
I mean, I know we're covering it later, but reading through the trial transcripts of the grooming gangs, particularly the one from Oxford in 2013, I'm not proud to say this, but honestly, it did make this like tiny little neocon generate in the back of my mind, saying like, hey, maybe we should just go to war with all these countries just because of how horrifying that stuff is.
No, I do understand it. And then the final one, which didn't get as much press as the others, was this one, I think, in Nottingham. So this was a deviant targeting young boys in Nottingham. He was on a park bench showing them pornography. And I think the children were as young as 9 years old. Yeah, 2 9-year-olds. And apparently they were sexually assaulted as well. So this was just in a park in the middle of the day.
Afghan, yeah?
I believe so, yes.
They were boys too. So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what that means? It means that this Afghan was presumably one of the ones that we were supporting when we were over there, because that was the famous thing, the footage from the documentary, that the ones that we were supporting would abuse the boys, the ones that we were fighting would abuse the girls.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And just to pivot to some data on this sort of thing, to show that it is a civilizational thing, if you've not already been convinced. So this is data from Germany. While 163 German citizens are suspected of crimes per 100,000 individuals, so per capita, for Syrians and Afghans it's 1,740 and 1,722, which means that Syrians are 10.7 times overrepresented relative to the German population, and Afghans 10.6 times overrepresented, which is obviously absolutely massive.
So I knew somebody who worked, tried to sort of dissuade them from doing this, but who worked in welcoming Syrian refugees into Germany in the Merkel era. And then eventually this person came to realize that when they asked for halal meat and got it, they understood that this is a weak culture that they can do anything to. And once they were given halal meat, everything broke down. And they kept on making more and more demands and becoming more and more ungrateful. Because they see your kindness as your weakness.
And that's how it's treated, really.
And that's how it's treated. In their home countries, they may not do the same kinds of crimes because a mob would show up to their houses and burn them with their families inside. Here, they just go to jail as opposed to being killed. They don't feel that this is enough of a deterrent.
Absolutely. No, people don't realise that our punishments are catered towards a civilized European people and not people from this part of the world who simply see these sorts of things as laughable in terms of punishment.
Exactly.
And, sorry, were you going to say something, Callum?
No.
Okay. So here from the Women's Safety Initiative, they're sharing this. In Germany, Afghans and Africans are proportionally 40% and 70% more involved in gang sexual assaults than Germans. And look at that, even Africa, which has the sexual assault capital of the world in the Congo, is outdone by the Afghans here. So
and that wasn't actually 40% and 70%, that was 40 times and 70 times.
Yes, sorry, I misread it.
No, just to emphasize what that means is if you're in Germany and you pass by an Afghan, he is 70 times more likely to try to do something to you than an average German person.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And of course, the Danish data as well, some of the most comprehensive data. This is violent crime. You can see that Afghanistan is still up there as one of the top countries. I know it's a little bit difficult to see with the small text, but I'll zoom in a little bit. So you can see here Afghanistan pretty close to Syria, but you've got basically lots of other
Kuwait,
Islamic,
Lebanon,
lots
Tunisia.
of other Islamic countries, as well as a few African ones sprinkled in. But it's unsurprising that they're up there, right? And you're starting to get a picture. Okay, these people are massively disproportionately likely to be violent rapists, basically. And of course, this isn't just true of Germany; it's true of Britain as well. According to the Telegraph, foreigners account for 1 in 7 sexual offences in terms of convictions last year, and this came from August of 25. So
it's worth saying that the conviction rate compared to the attack rate is abysmally low.
It is indeed, but even so, that's still a staggering overrepresentation, isn't it?
Yes.
And there's also this as well. This is from Restore Britain. Sexual offences, it's a little bit zoomed in, so if we could zoom that out a little bit, Samson. Thank you. There we go. We can see British all the way down at the bottom here. Even the French are outdoing us. But all the way at the top, look at the difference. Afghanistan number 1 for sexual offences in London compared to the British down here. A tiny little proportion. And this is, of course, per capita as well. There's a massive disparity. And obviously, it's because they are different. They're not compatible with British culture. Here's another one. Arrest rates in the UK. Afghans only beat out by Albanians, who are...
That'll be drugs offences, I assume.
It's going to be drug offences and gang-related. Afghans, of course, they're not necessarily as heavily involved with gangs as Albanians, who are sort of synonymous with it now, aren't they? So they're sort of our criminal underworld at this rate. And it's got to the point now where the Labour Party is saying things like, we must identify and address any links between ethnicity, religion and culture and child sexual assault. You can read what it says. YouTube won't like it if I say it. Which is an interesting rhetorical shift, because they wouldn't say this sort of thing. And in fact, many of their own voters were calling them racist and far right and things like that, and fascist even for some reason.
The Whip says apparently the party's looking into it.
Really?
Yeah. Despite the fact that apparently as well, all of the Labour inquiry plans into it have also set out to determine if there is a link between all of these things, which means it's actually part, like so many things, it's completely schizophrenic. It's part of party policy and party campaigns and initiatives, but if you actually go onto a platform like GB News and say it, then you may get an internal investigation against you.
Mm-hmm. No, there's lots of double standards involved in these sorts of things, and it's just created it is created to disincentivize people pointing out the problems, isn't it? That's the whole point it exists. But there is a solution. Iran drove out 1.5 million Afghans. They branded some spies for Israel, which is an interesting justification for it. Also kind of amusing. But the point is that their daily returns peaked at about 50,000 people, and of course it's probably easier to return them from Iran because Iran is closer to Afghanistan. However, with Britain being a more advanced economy, I think we could probably achieve 50,000 people a month. It could be done, could even exceed that.
Yep.
And then you can even look at places like Pakistan, who moved to expel 1.7 million Afghans from Pakistan. So when people say, oh, you're being racist, blah, 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 well, it's already being done by Iranians, by Pakistanis, and, they're pretty close in terms of geography. So to say that, obviously, there's a certain degree of conflict between the groups, that's why they're getting rid of them. But even so, that rhetoric doesn't really work here.
The conflict between their cultures internally and their culture and Western culture is so much smaller,
Of course, there's a lot more compatibility there, and even in those countries,
it caused
doesn't
problems.
work. Yeah.
So the idea that it will work in the West because I don't understand.
No, it makes no sense, does it?
No.
But I wanted to end on a positive note that Carl pointed out that YouGov recently found out that 45% of people support remigration already, and the campaign has barely even got started. I think that as these sorts of crimes continue to go on and there's no solution in sight, everything seems to be a half measure, this is going to become a vast majority of the population, if not already, because of course YouGov is running questionable ways, and they can ask questions in a way that biases the result. I think that if a different institution were to do it, I think it would be in a majority, and I think some have already found that. However, even YouGov polling, I think, will start to suggest that people will support this in a majority, and it is inevitable, isn't it? It is going to happen. The way things are going, they can't continue as they are.
The question is how, and with how much violence. Mm-hmm. Like in my mind, it's pretty clear that this is happening. But the question is, what are the mechanics, and can it be done without an extreme amount of violence?
Well, we'll have to see, won't we? I think that the earlier you do it, the more peaceful it will be, and so there's a strong incentive to get it over with as quickly as possible, both to protect the British people and to preserve law and order.
Yes.
But
Exactly.
we'll have to see what happens. If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.